Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all for joining us on this Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day. And this year is a very significant year because it's 75 years since 1945. It's 3/4 of a century since the Holocaust, the greatest tragedy in human and Jewish history. And unlike any other Yom HaShoah that any one of us could remember, we are quarantined and not able to be physically together, but our hearts and our souls and our minds are connecting at this very moment as we come together to remember the 6 million. Now, I've often said that if you wanted to observe one moment of silence for every one of the 6 million Jews who perished during the Holocaust, if you held a moment of silence consecutively for each of the 6 million, 24/7, 365 days a year, you would have to remain silent for 12.5 years consecutively, day and night, to remember the 6 million. So it's impossible to remember 6 million beautiful lives, men, women, and children. Each one was a universe, a world unto themselves, never to be recreated again. However, we come together to bring elevation to their souls. Because in our tradition, we're taught that when a person leaves this world, their soul remains present. And when we connect to their souls and we do a mitzvah in memory of their souls, we become their hands and their body and their legs. And it brings aliyah, elevation, to their neshama in Gan Eden in paradise. And that is why we don't just say lezecher nishmat, that we do good deeds in memory of, but we say leilui nishmat, for the elevation of the souls of our loved ones. So we will be praying very soon. We'll learn some words of Torah, but I want to begin with tzedakah. And so if you have a charity box in your home, take out a dollar bill or more than a dollar bill or a coin, whatever you like. And just like we have a charity box here, reach over to your charity box. If you don't have a charity box next to you, you could put it in the box later, but designate some money. And that this good deed, this mitzvah that we're each going to do in our own homes will be for the elevation, for the Ilui Neshamot of the 6 million who we're remembering today, who we are holding so dear in our hearts and our minds. We'll take a second to give everyone to take out some tzedakah and perform the mitzvah of charity. We're now going to continue with prayer. And I'm going to call upon Rabbi Yosef Rice, who will light these 6 candles to begin the ceremony, each one of them for the 6 million. And then he will recite the Kel Mole prayer. And if you have a kippah, please put it on, of course, and join along in praying with Rabbi Yosef. He will translate the prayer into English. It's the special prayer for the 6 million. And afterwards, we will all respond, Amen. Rabbi Yosef Rice. As Rabbi Yosef lights the candles, I just want to explain why traditionally in Judaism we always light candles to remember our loved ones, because King Solomon in the book of Proverbs says, Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The candle of God is the soul of man. Why is a candle compared to a soul? Obviously because a candle radiates light and warmth like a soul does. Also the wax diminishes, just like the body declines with time, and then the soul returns to its source in heaven. As King Solomon says, that the body returns el afar to the earth, v'haruach, the soul, the spirit of man returns el Elokim asher netana, to God who gave the soul. But more importantly, what is unique about a flame, about a candle, is that while everything in this world is governed by the laws of gravity and is in a downward motion, a fire is always going higher, counter-gravity, and that reflects our soul. Our bodies sometimes are lazy. Our bodies want to be in a position of rest, but our soul is always dancing, always yearning, always striving to go higher and higher like a flame, trying to connect and get closer to God. And that's why when we pray, we often shuckle, as it's called, we sway, because like a candle that's swaying, when our soul is ignited through Torah and through prayer, we automatically start shaking because we feel the inner vibration of our soul, the flickering candle from within. Rabbi Yosef Rice.
El Molerachamim, Shoichein Bamroimim, Hametzim Ruchon Yechoina, Kanfei Ashchina, B'malois Kidoishim, Utzeoirim, Kizoyar Arakia, Mazirim, Es HaKdoishim, Vatzoirim, Shehom So, Vishnehergo, Vishenishkatu, Vishenisrivo, Vishenitvo, Vishnetnego, Kiddush Hashem, Al Yidei Atzirim, Germany, Mimachim Bamizufro, Babur Shebli Neder, Etein Tzedakah Vadas Kodesh Nishmei Seyem, Meganei Dentem Nuchasam, Lachein Balarachamim, Yastirem, Misezer Gnapav Lelamim, Vitzrar Achayim Es Nishmei Seyem, Hashem Nachlazam, Vinu V'Shalom Hamish G'Voy Seyem. is a sure rest upon the divine presence wings, within the range of the holy, pure, and glorious, whose shining resembles the skies to the souls of the holy and pure ones who were killed, murdered, slaughtered, burned, drowned, and strangled for the sanctification of the name. Through the hands of the Nazi oppressors, may their name and memory be obliterated. Because without making a vow, I will give charity in memory of their souls. Therefore, the Master of Mercy will protect her forever from behind the hiding of his wings, and will bind her soul in the bond of life, the everlasting in her heritage, and she shall rest peacefully upon her resting place. And let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Rice. Ladies and gentlemen, we live now 75 years after the Holocaust. And so anyone who is alive today, who survived the Holocaust, and has any recollection and memories of the Holocaust, must be somewhere in their 80s or even 90s. We are living in a time that we are still able to hear firsthand accounts. And indeed, there are many Holocaust survivors who still live amongst us, who can tell the story firsthand, so that we can retell the story from generation to generation and fulfill the dictum of the Torah that says, Zachor, remember. Because you know the Torah is not a history book. The Torah tells us, remember. And Rabbi Jonathan Sachs explains the difference between history and memory. He says in Hebrew there's no word for history. That's why Israelis say historia. How can a nation with the longest history not have a word for history? So Rabbi Jonathan Sachs says the word history is his story or her story, not my personal story. Memory is my personal story. History is when you turn around and look back what has been and what has come before you. Memory is when you look forward with a mirror in front of you and you see everything behind you that came before you, but you see yourself in the picture. That's why at the night of the Seder we said, B'chol over there in every generation, Chayav Adam Lerot et Atzmo, you have to see yourself as though you personally went out of Egypt. We have to imagine ourselves going through the Holocaust, because what happened to our ancestors happened to all of us. We are a nation depleted, robbed of 1/3 of our people. How many more millions of Jews, families, would have been alive today? How many more members would each and every one of us have in our own family, if not for the tragedy and the murder of 6 million Jews? And so we are affected every day by the tragedy of the Holocaust. One of our very, very dear beloved members is Jacqueline Goldman, a beautiful, regal woman, a woman who loves Judaism and Torah and Hashem with all her heart and all her soul. And I want to tell you a story that really reminds me of Jacqueline Goldman. I've told the story many times, but it seems apropos today for Yom HaShoah. It's a story told by Rabbi Ed Feinstein from California. And he says he was once visiting Yad Vashem, of course, Israel's Holocaust Memorial Museum. And he was going through the museum and he sat down on a bench where a documentary, a film of a man telling his story, an elderly man of his survival, was being played. And next to him, he said on the bench was a young Israeli girl, maybe in her 20s. And she was wearing an Israeli Air Force uniform and she was weeping uncontrollably. Rabbi Feinstein said he kept on looking over to see if she's okay. At one point, he took out a tissue and offered it to her, and she refused it. Finally, he turned to her and said, At beseder, are you okay? She said, yes. Ani beseder, I'm okay. And then she turned to Rabbi Feinstein and pointing to the movie, to the film, and said, Zeh ha-saba shali, this is my grandfather. V'zeh oto ha-sipur sheshamati kol ha-chayim shali. It's the same story I've heard my entire life. She continued to cry. Rabbi Feinstein turned to her and said, Za'oto sipur, it's the same story. Aval, however, but, hasof acheret, the ending is different. And she turned from her tears and she looked at Rabbi Feinstein and said, Maza sof acheret, what do you mean the story has a different ending? Rabbi Feinstein looked at her and said, At, you, chayelet, a soldier, the Chel Avir in the Air Force, B'tzva Hagana Yisrael, in the Israel Defense Forces, B'medinat Yisrael, in a Jewish homeland, in a Jewish country. Zeh sof acheret. This is a different ending. The tragedy of the Holocaust was followed 3 years later by the rebirth of the modern state of Israel, of the beginning of Jews coming home to Eretz Yisrael. Today, the largest population of Jews around the world is in Eretz Yisrael. 3 years after coming eyeball to eyeball with the angel of death, where a madman tried to extinguish and annihilate our entire nation, we came back to Israel after 1900 years and recreated our own homeland, our sovereignty in Eretz Yisrael. And then we went on to capture the Kotel HaMa'arivi, the Western Wall, and regain access to the holiest place on earth, where our prayers ascend to the heavens. And so we declared Am Yisrael Chai. We declared never again will we allow something like this to happen. And as you know, the Israel Defense Force protects not only Jews in Israel, but anywhere around the world when Jews are in danger. The mandate of the Israeli Air Force is to protect Jews, as we've seen time and again, most famously during the Entebbe raid. Jacqueline Goldman came out of the horrors of the Holocaust, losing countless members of her family. And she immediately devoted her life to rebuilding Eretz Yisrael, our beloved homeland. That was her answer to the Holocaust. And as I've told you before, the Western Wall Plaza was dedicated by Jacqueline Goldman, and it carries her name and her beloved husband Nathan on it. And of course, Magen David Adom, Israel's ambulance service and blood bank that they are building now underground, was also spearheaded by Jacqueline Goldman, including the Palm Beach chapter of Magen David Adom. And it indeed reminds me of an experience Dini and I once had when we were in Jerusalem. We were walking on Machane Yehuda Street on a summer night. We walked into an ice cream shop to get a little bit of blida. And there were two young Israeli girls behind the counter, again in their 20s. We asked to taste a sample of one of the ice creams, and when she gave me the flavor on a little spoon and she reached over the counter, I froze even before tasting the ice cream, because on our hand was a number tattooed from the concentration camps. And I looked at her and I said, "What is that?" Clearly she was too young to have been in the concentration camps. And she said to me, "That's the number of my grandfather. My grandfather who survived the camps. I tattooed his number on my arm." And I said to her, "Why did you do that?" And she said, "Because I always want to remember the sacrifices he endured to be able to give me the greatest gift of my life, to be born as a proud Jew in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, as a free Jew living in my own homeland." And I said to her, "Tell me, as a young girl, you go out with your young friends, doesn't that number on your arms create a very serious mood and conversation? Doesn't everyone ask you what I just asked you? Doesn't that interfere with your social life?" She said, "On the contrary." She said, "That's precisely why I put it on my arm, because I wanted to make sure that I can tell as many people as possible about my heroic grandfather and the trials and the tribulations he survived. I want as many people to ask me so I could tell them about my Saba." And then I said to her, "Tell me, what did your grandfather say when he saw your number on your arm?" She said, "I showed it to him and he began to weep, and he bent down and he kissed my arm." I could only imagine what the grandfather was thinking. He was thinking, my grandchildren appreciate my sacrifices. My sacrifices were not in vain. My grandchildren will carry on the message and the lessons. And that's the most important part of Yom HaShoah. To remember the past so we can learn for the future. To learn to live more Jewishly. The greatest revenge over Hitler is that we live as Jews. We live as powerful Jews. Hitler wanted to eliminate the Jewish people. We have to create and build a Jewish people. Teach your children Torah. Teach your grandchildren Torah. Let them know who they are, where they come from. Let them carry on as living memorials, not just in stone, but on the hearts and the minds of ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren. And so it's truly an honor to call upon our esteemed member, Jacqueline Goldman, who her eyes and her ears witnessed what no human eyes and ears should ever have to endure and witness. Our family was torn apart, brutally murdered by the Holocaust, by the Nazis, Yimach Shemam, and she will tell her account for the next 15 or 20 minutes, following which I will follow a Q&A, asking her some questions. And I want to thank Jacqueline Goldman for having the courage and the strength, although it's very painful for her, to recall these horrific memories. But she does it for one reason only, to make sure that the world never forgets that their sacrifice was not in vain, that their memory lives on, and the lessons of not tolerating evil and hatred in the world, and standing up to it, and carrying on Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people live on with strength, with confidence, with resilience, and with vitality, with joy, and with love. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to turn the screen over to one of the matriarchs of our community, Jacqueline.
It is with deep humility and reverence that I bring to you today the most painful memory in Judaism, the martyrdom of our people during the Shoah. As a 13-year-old girl, I was not deported, but lost 22 members of my family in the death camps and witnessed personally the arrestation of my father and 2 of my uncles from across the street where I was just returning home from school at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, September 22nd, 1943. Had I crossed the street 1 minute earlier, I would not be here today. When I turned the corner to our street, my heart stopped. Our entrance was blocked by 2 military trucks guarded by patrolling soldiers, machine guns at the ready, and two French militia officials. One by one, my uncles appeared in the doorway, pushed brutally by the Nazis. And then there was my dad. He was shaking his head in disbelief as a Nazi shot him up in the truck, hitting him with the butt of their rifles. Other soldiers were coming back and filling up the trucks with families they had just arrested. The truck was full and they left. I could see my mother diagonally across from me, together with my old grandmother and my aunt. They had just returned from their daily walk. They seemed frozen on the spot where they stood. Our concierge ran out to them and told them, run away quickly. They said they are coming back for the wives and the children and the luggage. We were panic-stricken and terrorized. My mother said, Jacqueline, run up to your very good friend and ask them if we can visit just for a few minutes, just the time to think and decide what to do. My girlfriend and I used to do our daily homework in her home across from where we lived. I ran up breathlessly and rang their bell. Her mother hardly slid open the door and said roughly, Mademoiselle, I do not know who you are, and quickly shut the door on me. At that moment, such a rude rebuke from a friend was devastating. But so many more refuse came afterward. It was terrible. I came back down in the street. We took a chance, rushed upstairs. My mother quickly gathered a little bit of valuable, easily accessible. And again, we were out. My aunt was waiting for us with a key to their brother's empty apartment he had left them with when he went in hiding. So we took Grandma, and the 5 of us went to stay there without clothes and without food. From then on, the terrible nightmare was going to last until our father's return 1.5 years later, with his indelible memories of impossible to describe horrors. Meanwhile, my mother, my little sister, and I tried to survive in a place from where we knew there was no hope for escape. Alone, abandoned by the whole world, helpless, desperate, and in constant fear to be caught. My father was taken from us as a strong and handsome, loving family man, 6 foot tall, who advanced in life, enjoying each day of hard work and of happy reward. He returned to us on April 12, 1945, liberated by General Patton, weighing 82 pounds, broken of body and broken of spirit, having suffered the ultimate barbarism of man's inhumanity to man. I have here a page of his memories that recount that in Auschwitz, by hazard, he found his 2 brothers, and he writes, "He handed me his last portion of bread. Go ahead, take it, Daniel, if you can still eat. Take it. I cannot eat anymore." Next to him stood George, his eyes almost closed by enormous putrid balls, is nothing but an immense carcass covered over by a thin layer of diseased skin. He says, "I suffer morally. I cannot take it anymore." I tell him, "Listen, George, remember how you fought those barbarians at the Battle of Verdun in 1916. You were a hero during these horrifying days. You had courage." But he interrupted me. "My poor Daniel, I fought because I had arms to defend myself. Here, I cannot defend myself. I am helpless. We have no more wives, no more children. No one has survived. Here, we just have to try to die as quickly as possible." They left, and I never saw them again. My morale was so low, such misery, despair, everywhere, walking corpses, screams, dead bodies that were picked up in carts, the deepest of human misery. When I look back, I do not know where I found the strength to go on to survive, unless it was the forlorn hope that maybe one day I could bear witness. I am scared to repeat the horrors my father has witnessed, and yet I am so old that I feel the need to pass them on as a testimony of inimaginable evil. How they murdered the little children, the experiments on people and pregnant women, the dehumanization before the killing. Remembering the Holocaust is a holy responsibility for each Jew to forget or to want to turn the page because the memories are too painful. It is a sin. To want to erase the death camps, the gas chambers, the crematorium, it is a sin. We owe it to our martyrs, our 1.5 million children, all our Kiddushim, to never forget. Forgetting would be to desecrate, to profane their holiness. Our Bible says, Zachor, remember. The memories of the Holocaust are now entrusted to you, the new generation, as my Holocaust generation is dying out. It is a Jew's obligation to fight the negation of the Holocaust, to bear witness and to wage war on anti-Semitism. It is our obligation to protect Israel as much as we love it, or Israel protects us all. We must remember, we must transmit. Judaism brings love to replace hatred. Judaism brings light to replace darkness. And it is an honor to be a Jew. That is what I want to tell you. I am happy I was able to witness for my father. That is what he wanted to do. That is why he returned. He said he was not expecting to find us, but he returned because he wanted to tell the world what had happened to all of them.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for your heart-wrenching and painful testimony.
It is a must.
Jacqueline,
Yes.
we are honored and privileged to know you. We admire you and respect your steadfast devotion. And I think the term Holocaust survivor is a misnomer because the word survivor sounds like you just barely survived. But I think you're a Holocaust thriver. You survived as a Jew after the Holocaust and have worked tirelessly for the betterment and for the strength and the rebuilding of the Jewish nation. And for this, we all owe you a great debt of gratitude. I think you're able to hear me?
I hear you very well, Rabbi.
Okay, good. Jacqueline, I want to ask you a question. I know you didn't grow up with a lot of Jewish observance at home. If you could please tell us when you had your first impressions of Jewish heritage, where it came from, and how crucial of a role did it play in your life over the years? And how vital is it in your mind for Jewish children to grow up with a strong Jewish identity and knowledge of their history?
Well, it is one of my most precious memories of my beloved grandfather. Unfortunately, my father left very early, very young, his family, and he was not religious. And I did not know what it was to be a Jew. I just went to school and I knew I was not like the other children because they used to tell me, Dario, we never see you in church. And when I asked my father, he said to me, tell them you are French, that's good enough. So when we went to visit his parents who lived in Poland, in Krakow, and I was 9 years old, we went for Yom Kippur. I absolutely fell in love with that wonderful, wonderful old gentleman. He looked like an El Greco. And it was the night before, it was Kol Nidre night. And for the first time, I went with my grandparents and my father to the little shul. I couldn't let go of my grandfather's hand, so I let my grandmother and my aunt went in the other side, and I stayed with Grandpa. And he took me under his talus. And I arrived in a room where there was an atmosphere that I'd never known before. It was very small. It was a quarter of the size of our temple, of our synagogue. And it was lit by gaslight. It was quite dark. Everybody was so quiet. But they were expecting something. I had never found such a sort of a holy silence that I did not know what was going to come. And the Rasen came in and he started to sing Kol Nidre. I had never heard music like that. I had never heard singing like that. He was singing with his soul. And I was under my grandfather's talus. And his book was wide open. And I saw signs on that book. It was Hebrew. I never saw Hebrew letters. I was looking at it and I saw teeth falling down on the book, on the prayer book. And I looked up and there was his beautiful face, his eyes closed. He was praying and he was crying. And he gave me a transfusion of Judaism. This moment with the husband singing Kol Nidre and my grandfather praying under his talus, I became a Jew. I did not know what it was, but I knew that that's where I belonged. And this image has stayed with me all my life. I was not able to learn because right after that, when we came back, the war started. I was never able to learn my own heritage, my beautiful, beautiful heritage. And through the suffering, the only thing that I knew, I remembered that Kol Nidre night. I remembered it all my life. I'm 93 years old, and it is one of the most illuminating memory of my life. And it has sustained me a lot. My poor dear grandfather was murdered on Kol Nidre night. A few years later, they were dressing. Germany had invaded Poland already, and the temples were locked. And he dressed and took my grandmother for Kol Nidre. When they arrived to the temple, it was locked. And he took the door and he shook the door and he wanted to force it open. And the German was there. And he took out his gun and shot my father my grandfather right on the steps of the temple. And my grandmother was there. She came running to him, and he shot her too. It was such a terrible thing. When my father came back from deportation, people used to come up to him all the time with pictures. Have you seen this one? Have you seen him? Have you heard about him? And somebody called and said, you know, I am from Krakow and I know what happened to your parents. So my father said, please come. And I was with him in the little room where we were staying together. And the man was sitting at the table. And when he started to tell my father the story, I was afraid to look at my father. My father was silent. He didn't say anything. When he was finished talking, my father said, thanks God. I just couldn't believe it. I could not believe it, that he felt that he was grateful that his parents were protected from having to go to a death camp. You can imagine what it is to have to say thanks God when you hear your parents have been murdered, have been shot. He was grateful they didn't have to go.
That's unbelievable. Jacqueline, there are children who are growing up who never met a Holocaust survivor, and there will be future generations. What message should everyone listening to your voice now communicate to their children and grandchildren when they tell them, I spoke to a Holocaust survivor, and this was the message they asked me to deliver to you, my dear child, my son, my daughter, my grandson, my granddaughter. What message can we relay from you to our children and grandchildren?
Learn about Judaism. Enjoy everything that you learn about Judaism. Please be religious and love it. Love being Jewish and love and respect and honor our teachings. They are a tree of life to those who follow them. This is what Moses said, and it is a fact. It is a tree of life to those who follow. They are rendered happy. Please respect and love the Shabbat. If I could start all over again, I would want to be raised to learn all that is to be known about the beauty, the history and the beauty of our teachings. I am so proud. The Jews are a light into the world. And I was not able to learn why. It is because of our Torah. And if I could start all over again, believe me, I would have been a very, very religious Jew. I have missed that opportunity. This is the one message I can give you, and to be always, of course, following our wonderful teachings.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
My last question to you is, when you look around the Jewish world today, what gives you the greatest hope, the greatest encouragement, and the greatest strength?
The greatest encouragement, it's Israel. It is Israel. I have such I feel so fortunate to have seen Israel reborn and to have seen, can you imagine what it is when we saw the Israeli soldier getting back to the hotel, when you saw, I met the lady whose father blew the shofar for the first time after 2,000 years of absence. Can you imagine what it represents that we are back home? We are back home. And I remember how the German Jews used to arrive in France, those who ran away who were able to, and they were saying, oh, but we are German, this will pass by. Then the French Jews, oh, but we are so French, Nothing passed by. We are not German, we are not French, we are nothing. We are Jews, and our country is Israel. I am a Zionist at heart, and I have to say it loud.
Thank you, Jacqueline. We're also honored to have with us Jacqueline's son, Philip, on the phone, on the Zoom call. I'd like to ask Philip to say a few words.
What a surprise.
Mama Sherry, I cannot tell you how proud I am to see you addressing your beloved congregation that you consider to be part of our family and with whom you take such joy to be able to pass along these memories that can never be learned any other way but from your mouth to their ears. And when I think of all the memories that I shared with Grandpa, always a story so that we would never forget. And this is going on with you, to my kids, your grandchildren, and soon to your great-granddaughter, who will learn it too. So I love you, and I can't tell you how meaningful it is to watch you be able to share, and how proud you are to be an Israeli citizen in this time.
I am. Thank you, my darling. It's really le d'or, le d'or.
The Davida.
Yes.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Jacqueline. We will carry your story with us forever. Your story inspires us to do more, to be a greater light unto the nations, to combat all the evil and all the darkness, past, present, and future, with the light of Torah, the light of Judaism. Every year, we have a custom at our synagogue, which began through Carol and Bernie Ozowski, we would designate and throughout the day have people reading names right here at the Bima, which would come up on a rotating basis to recite as many names of the victims. Obviously, we cannot name all the 6 million, but as many as we can throughout the course of the day. And so today we're doing it on Zoom. I'd like to turn it over to Carol and Bernie Ozowski. Thank them for instituting this tradition at Palm Beach Synagogue. For a few minutes, they're going to read the Holocaust victims who tragically were murdered by the Nazis and list their name, their age, and the town that they were from. Bernie and Carol Ozowski.
Ben-Sion Abramowitz from Poland, 46 years old. Sarah Abramson, Poland, 23 years old. Tanina Adler, Czechoslovakia, 42. Fega Adam, Poland, 25. Rika Auerbach, Poland, 65. Shabtai Agostowski, Poland, 39. Chaim Aroblansky, 47, Poland. Bernhard Altman, Romania, 47. Menachem Amsterdamski, 19, Lithuania. Yitzhak Angel, Greece, 64. Chaim Anderman, Poland, 60. Sendel Applejohn, Poland, 37. Eti Axelrod, Poland, 19.
Hanna Oslerner, Poland, 41. Moshe Aronowitz, Poland, 64. Micheline Aronson, France, 23. Sarah Obstbaum, Poland, 30. Moshe Agurek, Poland, 55. Liba Ozerowitz, Poland, 41. Hirsch Osher, Poland, 30. Abraham Ostfeld, Romania, 51. Mikhail Osterer, Romania, 32. Joshua Oselka, Poland, 44. Jospa Ostregziga, Poland, 41. Zemil Oskala, Poland, 38. Frida Oppenheimer, Germany, 54.
Chana Ofen, Poland, 19. Baruch Order, Poland, 65. Chaja Orenstein, Poland, 23. Miriam Unger, Hungary, 37. Yosef Irwanier, Romania, 54. Elizabeth Itzkiozion, Poland, 46. Shipra Ikwavsky, Poland, 62. Zeno Ikovitz, Hungary, 44. Matilda Eisner, Austria, 50. Elena Eiderman, Russia, 47. Machla Edelstein, Poland, 28. Benzion Eisenbaum, Poland, 44. Hirsch Eisenthal, Romania, 42.
Thank you, Bernie and Carl, for joining with us as you do every year and trying to get a little bit of a glimpse into the magnitude of this tragedy and realizing what the Talmud says, that every world, every human being is like an entire world. 6 million worlds perished. And therefore, our resolve must always be to never stand by as innocent life is taken. Lo tamod al dam ruecha, do not stand by idly as your brother's blood is being spilled. Ladies and gentlemen, as Jacqueline said and Philip said, the message is midor lador, from generation to generation. We remember, we never forget, and we teach our children. We're joined today with a young student of the Palm Beach Hebrew School, Sophia Simpson, who will recite for us a poem of hope and encouragement as we remember the tragedies of the past, but look to the future with hope and optimism. Sophia Simpson.
Just Wait for the Sun by Lisa Mark. When everything's darkness and you feel so alone, when the rain all is lost and you just want to run, it can't rain forever, so just wait for the sun. When family is pain, when friends can't be found, when you just want to scream but you can't find the sound. When it's all your fault and you feel like you're done, just wait for the sunshine will come. The storm always passes, it won't last forever. The rain always stops and gives you ways to good weather. The brightness and warmness of days still to come, please wait for the sunshine will come. People who need you, people who still love you, can warm up your soul like the sunshine above you. You're never alone, no matter what does. Wait for the sun, just wait for the sun. Dark clouds always pass. I promise you, we're all waiting with you. Just wait for the sun.
Thank you very much, Sophia, for that beautiful poem. We'll wait for the sun. And as you're reciting it, I'm thinking it only also pertains to us during this coronavirus. We'll wait for the sun, for better times, happier times, when no one else will fall ill to this virus, and we'll hear no more bad news about people being affected or infected. And it's so good to see you smiling face. You are like the sun. Continue to shine your beautiful light and your face on the world. May you and your family be blessed. We have with us another student of Palm Beach Synagogue's Maimonides School for Teenagers, Joel Carmel, who will play for us 2 songs, including the Hatikva, Israel's national anthem.
I will be playing Shalom Aleichem and Hatikva.
Please rise in your home for Hatikva.
Thank you.
You're good.
So thank you so much, Joel. And when you sang Shalom Aleichem, I could hear the angels that we sing about guarding and protecting our loved ones, the 6 million, and showering us with their blessings as we carry on as the guardian angels and the emissaries of the 6 million here on earth. And may God send his protective angels for each and every one of us today and watch over the souls of our loved ones. As the King David says in the book of Psalms, Ki malachav yitzav l'shmarcha b'chol derachecha. God will charge his angels to protect you from now and forever. And now in conclusion, I'd like to introduce another student from the Palm Beach Synagogue Hebrew School, 7th grader Luca Weissman, who's also preparing for his bar mitzvah actually. And we'll conclude with a meditative song. And as Luca will play this song, I ask you to think, to close your eyes, and try to connect with the souls of the 6 million. And in their memory, pledge to do more good in this world, to never forget them, to make sure that we will carry on as their voice, and to carry on as their conscience in this world, to make sure that a tragedy like this will never occur again. I would like to introduce Luca Weissman. Thank you, Luca. And when I listened to the notes of that song, I heard a song of memory, but also a song of hope and optimism. A song that echoed the words of Sophia, where she said, "Wait for the sunshine." And I also heard the sound of Odlo of the Tikvatenu. Our hope has not been lost, as Joel just played so beautifully. Let us leave this evening together, united as one, with memory of the past and a promise to the future. Our hope will never be lost. Our hope will never be diminished. We will never give up, and we will make sure that never again we will remember Zachor, and we will live in memory of the sacrifices made by generations of Jews who gave us Judaism and Jewish life and the rebirth of Eretz Yisrael on a silver platter. Thank you, have a good evening, and may the neshamot of all the 6 million go from strength to strength, have an aliyah, and may they watch over their loved ones for now and forever. Have a good night.